Welcome back to another episode of We Don't Know What to Watch, the podcast where two guys use the power of the internet to watch random movies on random streaming services, and eventually we gotta get ourselves a sponsor. We should make money off of this somehow. We've been doing this long enough, I think. But anyway, so with me as always is the Bill Murray to my Dan Aykroyd, the wonderful, the incredible, the Kyle Mulford, and I'm Noah Saturn. How you doing, Kyle?
I didn't do it. It wasn't me. You can't prove
Oh,
anything.
it wasn't you?
It was Richard.
It was Richard? Okay. It was Shaggy. No, because Shaggy denies it too.
It wasn't me. I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. And what movie did we watch this time?
We watched What Richard Did, and we got to find out what Richard did.
It was tax fraud.
Totally tax fraud.
All right, great episode, everybody. We're done.
We'll talk about. Do we really care what Richard did? Let's see.
Okay. All right, so let's dig right into it. So this was a movie that was picked on us, and we watched it on. I watched it on Amazon Prime.
I should have, because I ended up watching it, I think, on like Tubi, which has commercials. So I'm not sure how that ended up happening. I think I was watching something else on Tubi, and I was like, oh, I'll just flip it over to this one. And then the second time, I actually did watch this twice because I like to try and watch these movies twice, like I've said in the past. But I watched it on Tubi again because I was like, oh, it was on Tubi. I'll watch it on there, and I completely forgot that it was also on Prime.
Yeah, so I watched it on Prime because I wanted to watch it on my TV, and I don't like having to watch movies with ads on a streaming service.
Yeah, I hear you. Luckily, I think only like one ad played in the entire movie, so
Nice, you got lucky there.
yeah. This movie is an Irish film from 2000 and something.
I think 12.
2012. Yeah, that sounds about right. By Lenny Abrahamson.
I think it's Abramson. I don't remember.
He's
the guy who made Room with Brie Larson.
Did he? He didn't direct that, did he?
I thought he did.
I know that he directed a movie called Adam and Paul and another one called Frank and What Richard Does. So he likes just movies with men's names in it. He also directed a movie called Garage. What's that?
I did watch Frank in theaters. It was something.
I have seen that one as well.
But no, I was right. Haha, he did make Room, and that gave us Jacob Tremblay. So that's good too.
Hey, yes, that was worth it. And actually, Room is a good movie. So, so first, this movie is based on a novel called Bad Day at Black Rock, which actually I wonder if we want to go into that after we talk about the movie itself, because then you'll have more context for what we're talking about. This so the basic plot of this film is rugby player and his friends hanging out, and then things get rowdy one night and he has a beef with someone and they all get in a fight and guy ends up dead. And that's what Richard did.
Spoilers.
I don't think you can talk about this movie without that spoiler though, because it happens like kind of halfway through the movie.
Mm-hmm. Also, just so we're clear, it was loosely based on the book by Kevin Powers, Bad Day in Black Rock. Bad Day at Black Rock is a Spencer Tracy movie.
Oh, I was wrong. That's Bad Day in Black Rock.
The Bad Day at Black Rock directed by John Sturges. That's a great movie.
So let's get into this. We've got Richard, played by Jack Rayner, who is in that new movie Midsummer, and he's in one of my favorite movies. Actually, one of my favorite movies, not even recently, but of all time, is Sing Street. I love that movie. He plays the older brother in that.
I haven't seen Sing Street, and I have not seen Midsummer, so I got a lot to add to this conversation.
And he was in that movie Free Fire. It's just another movie I've seen him in, but I didn't really care for that movie as much, even though it seemed like one that was right up my alley. So this movie follows this kid, Richard, and right from the get-go, we see him in his car with his friends Stephen and Kian, and they're just hanging out, and they go to the mall real quick, and they run into the magic kid, Jake.
I was convinced Jake was going to die in the first 30 minutes.
He kind of seemed like that kind of character. It's just like,
Yeah,
oh hey, it's Jake, the young kid. It's, how you
like he
doing,
gonna die.
Jake? He's expendable, and they go pick up a couple of girls at a gas station, and then they head to a beach party outside of Richard's parents' beach house, which
Mhm.
the beach house plays a big role in this film.
Yep.
And the first half of the film is really, it's kind of setting up Richard himself. Jack Rayner is in nearly like every single shot of this film.
Yeah, I mean, he is the main character, so he's the title character. So at least we got that.
Yeah. And like I said, he's a good actor, so we've also got that going for us.
That's true.
Um,
I thought everyone gave great performances overall.
yeah. The thing is this movie's a very slow burn,
Hmm.
but there are things to like about it because I think the first half of the film, it's really just, it's very intimately shot. It's a lot of close-ups, really getting in there and kind of, it's kind of a study on this guy because the director did a couple of movies before this. I think he said like he did some with some misfits, and he wanted to do one. And this is actually the first one that's based off a pre-existing book that he's directed.
He made movies with the band Misfits.
I, yes, entirely. No,
Oh, cool.
but he he wanted to do a movie to show that good guys can have like can be interesting as well, is the way he put it. So, he took this kid, and the beginning of the movie is a slow burn of just showing that this kid is just middle class Irish kid on the rugby team. He's a senior, he's just graduated, going to go off to college in the next year. He goes and parties with his friends, has some beers, has some fun, but he's a really good guy, and he's a very moral person and helpful. And I mean, after the party at the beach, they go to a pub, and there's a girl in trouble in the bathroom, and he runs in and saves her and carries her home like a knight in white shining armor. But it just kind of establishes him as just this really good guy. He legit is. It's not like he's hiding any demons or anything. So, but there's a girl, Laura, that he starts getting a crush on, and another teammate who's kind of seems like an outsider on the team, Connor. It seems like him and Laura might have been dating before, and Richard is kind of swooping in there and taking her away, kind of. So then there's a whole sequence of them starting to date and just showing, them falling in love and just sitting and talking, and like I said, more intimate stuff, just kind of on a porch, just chatting about their future and all this stuff. And
Blah 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 blah
yeah,
blah blah. Everything's great. Things are fine. They go to a birthday party. Get kind of drunk. Later, they go to a house party.
and
Get
he
really drunk.
notices at the mall, there's one time Richard goes to a store and he sees Connor buying a woman's sweater, and he kind of jokes to him about it and whatever. Oh, that'll look good on you, blah blah blah. And then he leaves the store, and then when they go to the party, the main party of the film, his Laura puts on this same sweater, so he's like, oh shit, Connor bought this for her.
Hmm.
And so he starts showing a little jealousy, and he started showing a little jealousy before that, but like, for being, he's a really good guy, but he is a little bit of a jealous guy. So, and Connor seems to have like issues. He's always crying about something.
Hmm.
But and so Laura was always coming to his rescue, and that's what Richard didn't like. So he couldn't get in. What they're outside of the party, he's out smoking, and he has a little lover spat with Laura because
First, he tries to get back into the party. Can't get back in, so he has to sit there and be grumpy.
he
Gets mad
goes
at
out for
Laura
a while,
because
buys more beer.
get mad at Laura because she wouldn't answer his phone, so he could answer her phone so that he could get back into the party. Gets mad, starts yelling at her. He's definitely drunk.
And his friends come out, and Connor comes out behind them and says, she wants to go home, blah 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 blah. And Richard's like, why don't you stay out of it, and kind of pushes him away, and then Connor decks him in the face. And then so his friends Steven and Kian come up, and jump in and start beating up Connor, and then finally Connor's on the ground and Richard kicks him in the face, and as
Really
they're
hard.
really hard, and as they're walking away, he looks back, and it is established that he looks back and sees Connor stumbling back to the party. So like he did get up and start walking back towards the party, and then the next day he finds out via the he's listening to the news and reading the paper with his parents, and finds out that Connor had died. So this is where then he goes to his friend Stephen Akean and is like, "What'd you tell the cops?" And we've got to get our story straight because there was also a big brawl outside of the house party, so most people were focused on that. So people didn't actually see their little brawl.
Hmm.
So then they all kind of stuck to their guns, and that's where the movie, you start seeing some fallout. You start seeing him kind of change because he had this like bright future in front of him, and then now he kind of seems like he doesn't know what to do, and he's going through all these different stages of you know there's anger in there, there's all the different things. And
He confesses to his dad, and his dad, you think his dad would say, "No, turn yourself in, son." His dad says, "No, shut up, be quiet, we'll figure this out."
yeah, and sends him off to the beach house, which until that point, like when the dad was introduced, the parents were really cool,
They
and
just
this
seem
was
like they
just
were genuinely good people that really love their kids.
yeah. And I think that that's what you kind of take from this, though, is that they still do. And because the dad was, I thought the dad, that scene was really great because the dad was really torn up about it. And I think he was upset because he didn't want his son to be in trouble. And so
Hmm.
I think he took the wrong approach and sent him away, but I think he was doing it just to save his son. So he goes out to Richard goes back to the beach house and spends a couple days there, and he has a breakdown in there, just a complete meltdown in the living room at one point. And before he went out there, Laura came and visited him, and she's like, I didn't tell the cops anything. And then she's calling him selfish because he's like, I can't believe this is happening to me. There's a dead kid, and he was being a little selfish about it, but it's also like he killed someone and he didn't mean to, but how's he, what do you do with that? It's the interesting thing about this film is it makes you think, what do you do? Because this is something that could happen to anybody.
You go to the police and give yourself up.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like that's what most sane people would do, because if you think about it, you go, it was an accident. I mean, you hope that you hope for a good outcome, but the right thing to do is to go, we got into a fight and we kicked him and he was walking away and Bob's your uncle. But no, he kind of falls apart, but like since no one saw it, he didn't want to get himself in trouble. So, but yeah, relationships fall apart because Kian didn't want to lie. And so he's like, I
Hmm.
don't want to see you anymore, Richard, because you're making me lie to the cops. And you get a
So
scene where
Richard even goes to the cops, and Richard lies to the cops too.
yeah, and you actually see his interrogation and his lie to the cops and all that. And eventually the dad comes out and says, "Okay, the police are looking at some other group of people that were the gate crashers at the party, but there's no real leads on anything and they're not looking at him at all."
Hmm.
So Richard's like, "Can I come back home?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And it's and then we get him going to the wake with the rest of the team, and and ironically, they sing their team song, or I don't know if it's a school song, team song, or what, but and there's a lot of stuff in there about honor and integrity and truth, and I'm going, boy, that's got to suck singing that song when you're sitting there at your friend's wake and you're the one who killed him and you haven't told anybody yet.
Hmm.
So, but this is where you start seeing him fall apart even more, because after this, one of his friends, I think Steven, asked him to go out, and he's like, no. And then he finds Jake and his friends drinking out behind a field somewhere, and then he ends up having sex with just some blonde girl that was established in the beginning of the movie, Sophie,
Hmm.
and and then she goes out to pee after he has sex with her, and you see him run away, and it's just like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
But but then they go to the actual funeral, and Connor's mom gets up and just reprimands everybody. It's like, you're all here, you were all there at the party, nobody's talking. Like, somebody knows what happened to my son. Why isn't anybody talking? And then of course Richard breaks down outside of the church after the service, and
But does he confess?
he still
No.
doesn't confess. And so towards the end of the movie, you get Richard and Laura, going out to the beach house. So like they do end up getting back together, and first he talks about turning himself in, and you're like, okay, but then they start talking about running off together and eloping, and what happens is after that conversation, you see it just cuts to the next year at school, and he goes into his first lecture at college, and boom, nothing happened. Just he just went on with his life. And so I mean that's basically I there's not much to the movie. It's a lot of just slow build character development.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't care much for it, all in all.
I was torn on it because I thought it was well acted, well put together, and the way they told the story, I liked how they really established him as this good person, and then you just see this falling apart when he realizes that things aren't good for him anymore. Like it's how he reacts to that. And and I don't know because you want to say you'd turn yourself in, but also I'm not saying that I would do what he did, but you can kind of see where it's like if I turn myself in and go to prison over an accident, like it was a complete fluke. That's the bummer of it, is that it was a complete fluke,
I
you
mean,
know.
plead guilty, probably get a lesser sentence, like, manslaughter or something, but not, we don't have to argue that. But anyway,
Yeah, but
I don't know.
but
Honestly, Richard just seemed like, well, this is definitely a person.
yeah, and that's the
He's
thing is that
kind of just like a bland piece of paper with a face drawn on it.
yeah, and the thing is that the ending is what it didn't clinch it for me, because it left it like kind of ambiguous, but like I don't even think it left it ambiguous. It just left it with, well, this event happened. He didn't turn himself in, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. He
No
just
consequences.
he just went off to school the next year, and there you go. I was like, what, like, what, where are you going with that? Like, what was the purpose of all this then? Like the story didn't come to any sort of resolution at all, and it's
It
not even
just kind of stopped.
it's not even open ended. It just stopped and said, well, nothing happened, so moving on. So I think, yeah, the fact that it just really didn't go anywhere with that ending. I can't. I'm going to go into the recommendations. I don't know if I can recommend this. As well
I
put
don't think I can recommend it either.
as well put together and I don't, a good slow burn movie is a good slow burn movie, but if it doesn't go anywhere, then what's that slow burn for? Hey,
Yeah, it's slow burn, but then it burned so slow, like the wind picked up and just kind of blew it out.
yeah. So it just didn't go anywhere with the story, and it seemed so inconsequential at the end. But very, like I said, very well put together, very well directed. I thought it was very well acted. I mean, you said that Richard seemed like a bland piece of paper. I think there was some nuance to the performance. I thought, I liked the character, but I just, like I said, it didn't. I liked the character, but it didn't do anything with the character.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, gonna be kind of a short episode because there's not much more to say about this. I guess we can go into it. Was, like we said, it was based on a novel, Bad Day in Black Rock by Kevin Power, and there is a major difference. Is apparently the book kind of goes back and forth in time in the story, and it's one of those that kind of goes into the backstory of all the different characters, and
Okay.
the director kind of wanted to just pinpoint and just really focus on the main character of who actually did the deed of kicking the guy in the head, I guess. and
Hmm.
really focus on one instead of like going back and forth between all the characters. And I guess if it actually went anywhere with the story, I would say that was actually a good choice for the film.
Hmm.
But this was loosely, the book was loosely based on an incident in Dublin. In 2000, there was a kid named Brian Murphy, and he went to a nightclub in Dublin. And from what I was reading, he met some friends there and said, "Hey, could you hang out with me all night because there's some people that want to beat me up?" And and then there was a big fight outside of the bar, and he ended up in that fight, and a bunch of people kind of pounded him, and he ended up dying at the hospital. The difference is that I think the one similarity is that I think in real life, this Brian Murphy, he was having trouble with the ex of his girlfriend or something like that, kind of like in the,
Hmm.
but then it was his friends actually like set him on the curb, called the ambulance, all this stuff. Whereas like in the movie, it's like they beat him up and left.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, so I think general users are more on our end because Rotten Tomatoes, this was a 91% with 47 critics, but only a 60% with 1,600 users. So it's one of those, critics love it, and I think it won, it won a couple of awards at the Irish Film and Television Awards. It won the Irish Film of the Year award.
I mean, I think some of that might be the fact that an Irish audience would probably be more familiar with the Brian Murphy case and maybe with the book as well.
Yeah, and that could be. I was reading that like the book itself brought up controversy because the family of Brian Murphy are like, why do you want to bring up these old wounds when people are finally starting to forget about it? Because the incident happened in 2000, and then the
Hmm.
book was written somewhere between then and 2012. So it's like, this incident is just starting to like go away, and some of the families are like, why are you bringing up these old wounds by writing this book? But I think overall, critically, the book was well received too. Like I said, that there's a lot that I really wanted to recommend this movie, but it just didn't go anywhere, and it didn't. There was no consequence. There was no. It just was like you said, just ended.
Yeah, I just kind of laid there.
But anyway, what would you recommend to go with this or instead?
See, that's a tough one. I was trying to rack in my head through what would work as like a double feature, or just kind of at least watch this instead of what Richard did. So you want to have something that has like sort of some sort of like accident or something. I'm trying to think of one. Give me a second. I gotta Google it. I forgot what it is. But yeah, so what I find, you want it to have something where there is some sort of crime involved, and you want it to be about sort of guilt, I guess, or because
Yeah.
felt what I really dislike this is the fact that there wasn't really a lot of dramatic tension, I guess.
Yeah, and what was there was, yeah, it was very like minimal with this.
Hmm. So I think what the best one I would pick is from 1951, similar kind of plot called, and it's A Place in the Sun, starring Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift. And this is about sort of a young man who wants to sort of move up in the world, starts works at a factory of his wealthy uncle, and then wants to sort of move in when he starts hanging out at this sort of higher social club with this girl that he really likes, then also is still kind of haunted by this other girl who really likes him, who's from a much lower class area.
Okay. I've heard of this one, but I have not seen this one.
Yes, and it's things don't go well for one of those women.
All
So
right.
yeah, very thematically similar. There is a lot of guilt. I just feel like that one has a much better payoff and at least more interesting characters to me.
Okay. I was the same way. I racked my brain on this one too, and I just could not come up with anything. So what I'm going to do is just basically recommend one of this director, because I think, like I've said, one of the best things about this movie was it was well directed. I'm going to recommend his Michael Fassbender movie Frank, because it's just so bizarre and interesting, and that one actually went somewhere with the story. And, um,
That is true. That one definitely did go in certain directions and places I did not expect.
Yeah. So I don't really want to say much about Frank other than it's about a band and then a writer who comes in and wants to write music for it. I think he wants to write music for him, right?
Yeah, he's like a songwriter.
Yeah, Donald Gleason and Michael Fassbender is the lead singer of the band, and he wears a giant paper mache head. So,
And his name is Frank.
and his name is Frank. And I found that movie kind of interesting. I kind of would recommend that one if you're going to watch something from this director,
Hmm.
because I really was having trouble coming up with anything similar to this movie off the top of my head. And even searching around, I was like, I have no clue what this would be like, as far as stuff I've seen before. Yeah, so go out and watch one of his other movies called Frank.
So now we come to our last section and possibly our favorite section where we have to figure out what on earth are we going to watch next. So Kyle, you got it up? You're getting the thingy
I
majig?
I do have I've got the wheel ready.
Oh yeah.
Do we want a genre? Do we want like science fiction? Do we want
Sure, I'm always in the mood for a good sci-fi or bad sci-fi.
see what we got in science fiction? 70% or better and spin the wheel.
Oh yeah.
Let's go to this one might be kind of fun because it's going to be another 50s monster movie.
I'm in.
All right, we've got when the first manned flight to Venus returns to Earth, the rocket crash lands in the Mediterranean near a small Italian fishing village. The locals manage to save one of the astronauts, Colonel Calder, the mission commander. A young boy also recovers what turns out to be a specimen of an alien creature. Growing at a fantastic rate, it managed to escape and eventually threatens the city of Rome.
Not the city of Rome.
This one is called, can you guess? I bet you've
Uh,
totally heard of this.
city of Rome.
No, 20 million miles to Earth.
Oh no!
This is
That
from
one does sounds kind of familiar.
1957.
All right, so let's get some our atomic age going then.
And this is, if you want to watch this, it is streaming on Tubi.
All right. Until then, I'm still Noah,
And I think I'm still Kyle. And
and you can find
I
us on
still didn't
social
do it.
media,
I am at AwesomeKM on
and
Twitter.
I am at Noah underscore Saturn SATERN on Twitter.
And we're also on Instagram at We Don't Know What to Watch. You can email us at we don't know what to watch at gmail.com. And until next time, stay out of them party fights.
Yeah, and I'm I'm not Richard, and I didn't do it. Richard Nixon did it.
I bet he did.
There we go. All right, bye bye.